Welcome back. I'm Gareth Edwards. Just a quick reminder now of our headline story. Indeed, breaking news. Professor Jakes Gerwel has died. He passed away, we understand, in the early hours of this morning. His family has asked for privacy at this time. We're told they will issue a statement a little bit later. But for reaction to this, and it's always very sad reaction, but nonetheless, a huge welcome to the University of Free State Vice Chancellor, Mr. Jonathan Jansen, on the line with me. And Vice Chancellor, good morning to you. Always a difficult interview to do, particularly with the gravitas of a man of the professor. If I could, your first reaction to the news this morning.
No, it's absolutely devastated. I mean, this is a person who has left such a large imprint on public life in South Africa, not just as the Vice Chancellor during difficult times of the University of the Western Cape, but also as the first Director General in Nelson Mandela's office. So he was also, a personal acquaintance, and so it's just devastating.
The family this morning, Vice Chancellor, not wanting to comment, understandably as well, about the complications that he had suffered in the lead up to his death. Were you aware of any health issues?
Yes. It's been a difficult week. Somebody suggested earlier this week that he had already died, and of course it put the family under huge stress. And because he was in fact in hospital, after a triple bypass operation, and also had other complications from it. So we knew he was seriously ill, but you never quite expect somebody at the age of 66 to go so quickly.
His work as a politician, certainly well documented, but for someone in your position, Mr. Jansen, if I can, from an academia perspective, what sort of hole has he left? What gap has now been left behind by this death?
Look, I think he was probably one of the best vice chancellors of a university that this country has ever had, and there's been some good ones, And it's because in a very, very difficult time in our history, he was able to combine academic excellence. He was a really outstanding academic in Afrikaans literature with political activism, and I think very few vice chancellors have the guts that Jakes Gerwel had in those days, to stand up to what was wrong, and at the same time to hold forth on excellent academic work. So in that sense, he was one of a kind, and certainly leaves, for many of us, he was the senior vice chancellor. I always looked up to him, and I still do, as my senior. And so you feel a mentor, has gone.
A man who can get that close to Nelson Mandela, Vice Chancellor, is certainly one, I would imagine, in a million, if not more as well. As far as the character of Professor Gerwel was concerned, what did it take for someone like him to rise to the heights that he did? Because his background, certainly of a massive struggle stalwart.
Yes, it's unusual. People forget he was actually born in a very rural part of the Eastern Cape, Somerset East. Went to school in a township school in Port Elizabeth. So there's nothing, and he's not an impressive person in terms of personality. He's very quiet, very reticent. He's not somebody to jump on the stage like some of us. He's a very humble man. And so, there was nothing to suggest that he would rise to such greatness, both in the academy, but also in politics. But I think that's precisely what made him attractive to so many people, his humility, but also his strength.
As a final question to you, as someone who is involved with academia on a daily basis, students will be coming to you, no doubt, Vice Chancellor, and asking you about the professor that has passed away. In a briefer way as you can, how would you describe it to perhaps students these days who are not familiar with his work?
I would say to them, here's a man who acted on his conscience in a quiet, determined way and did not allow his position in life, to compromise his position on what was wrong in our country at various times, and that ability to remain true to your critical consciousness, even when you've been elevated to a high political position, is something that all of us should remember.
And I do thank you for your time this morning, University of Free State Vice-Chancellor, Mr. Jonathan Jansen, joining us from Bloemfontein. My thanks to you, sir, in talking to us what is a very, very difficult time. That on the death of Professor Jakes Gerwel, who died at the age of 66. We'll bring you more details on that a little bit later. Of course, to remind you, the family has asked for privacy. They've also told us that they will issue a statement later in the day.